Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Photography 101. In this episode we're going to be talking about using a RAW file or a JPEG file when you shoot, when's best to shoot which, and the limitations of a JPEG file when it comes to post-processing. When you put your images into Lightroom or Photoshop, what you can and can't do with either, and let's take it away from there. So what is a JPEG file? A JPEG file is if you take your camera and just shoot in auto mode, it's going to give you a JPEG. Now that's just going to be a flat image. You can do stuff with a flat image, it's not going to look bad. But essentially it's going to take the settings that you put into your camera, whether you're in auto or whether you're in manual, and if you shoot JPEG it's going to output exactly what you see when you look on your viewfinder after you've taken a picture. With a RAW file, something slightly different. It is a much larger file for start. It's got many layers to it. All the settings that you find in your camera can be manipulated after the fact. So although you might see an image on your viewfinder or on your screen after you've taken an image, that will be the JPEG version of your RAW file you're looking at. Because that's using the settings in your camera. Once you take that file and put it on your computer, the RAW file will revert back to its normal state, default settings, and the picture may look different or flatter than the JPEG version of it. So sometimes with some cameras you can shoot in JPEG and RAW at the same time, and you can compare the two. I don't shoot that way anymore. I used to, because sometimes with a wedding, for instance, if you shoot JPEG and RAW, you can generally see and show those JPEG images quite quickly after the wedding. Now in my packages, and what I do is I take more time and I let the clients know the thing is going to take a little bit longer because I edit every image that I take from a wedding. I don't just throw the images on camera and then show the wedding couple. I go through each individual one, and I want to change stuff in those images that you may not be able to do with a simple JPEG file. So this is why I now only shoot in RAW, and I would offer you the advice to do the same thing. You're now in manual mode. You may have seen my video recently of how to shoot and expose properly in manual mode. You may want to watch that video. That is, I'll link it in the description, and I'll put a little link up the top there, you'll see it. If you haven't watched that one already, please head on over there and have a quick look. So we've decided now to shoot in RAW. What does that give us? Now that gives us more leverage when we want to edit our images afterwards. And I will show you in a second. I did a photo shoot the other day. I've recently put a video up of Chelsea lifeboat station. I did a long exposure down the beach. You'll see that on the picture just there, and I'm going to show you shortly in my laptop the difference between a RAW version of that image and a JPEG version. So why don't we head on over there now and I'll show you what I mean.
So here we are in Lightroom. This is the image I took the other day. It was a long exposure down on Chelsea beach, looking at the Chelsea lifeboat station, or the old Chelsea lifeboat station. The new one is has been built, and this is being or due to be demolished this year at some point. And this is the image I got. If I put the let's have a look. So it was a 205-second exposure at f13 ISO 100, and I was at 24mm with my 10-24 Tamron lens. I really like it. It's a really good image. I didn't like the boats in there. Obviously it's a 205-second exposure, so any movement is going to cause you've got all kinds of bits and pieces on here. So I took it into Photoshop once I'd done it and took them out, which I think done a fairly good job. But this is the base image. Obviously the file that came back from Photoshop doesn't have all of the bits that I tweaked in there, but the original one does, so we'll look at that and we'll concentrate on that. So on here you'll see that I have tweaked the general exposure a bit, and we've done some white balance stuff. I've made the picture fairly bluish, we've got a nice tint on it, and yeah, if I go through there you see all the bits and pieces that I've done, bit of sharpening and other bits and pieces. So I've copied this image into a JPEG format. This is that image in JPEG. You see it's got the same settings, but you'll notice there's a few things that we can't do with this image because it is now a JPEG. So if we go back to the RAW file, you know it's a RAW because it's been imported as a DNG into Lightroom. We can do all kinds of bits and pieces with the exposure. If I go back to the JPEG image, they're not in there. You don't get that. You don't get that layer of exposure compensation or white balance compensation in there. And there's a few other bits and pieces you can't do. But if I copy these settings, I can do that by hitting Command and C. I won't copy the transform or the crop because it is already cropped to the same extent as this, and it will just do weird things. But if I take all of the settings and I paste them straight onto there, Command V, you can see it gives a different image. It's not quite the same. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, because it's kept all of the different things. It's a little bit darker down in the corner there, you see that there, because a RAW file is going to have a better dynamic range than a JPEG. So the darks show up blue. I've got the hint on there that shows you where the dark areas are. So there's one drawback of a JPEG right there, is its dynamic range isn't as wide or as big as a RAW file, and I'll go over dynamic range in another video because we'll look at HDR stuff and bracketing our exposures for that, so that's not a major problem. But again, it hasn't copied over the white balance. I mean, I could probably change that and do something to make it look similar to the other one, but it just generally isn't an image the same as what I've got there. And I could do this with other pictures. The limitations of a JPEG are fairly substantial, and this is why I shoot in RAW, because I have more latitude after the fact. It's not to say that I don't want to get it right in camera, because I do. I think it's always right to get as much as you can done in camera, but as an artist, and my photography and anyone's photography I suppose is an art, and it's subjective. I've said it before, what I like isn't necessarily what other people like. I mean, I've done things to this image to make it look nice the way I want it to look nice, but some people might prefer it if it was over here, for instance, or we had a bit more tint that way, or green, and make it look quite, we go this way and make it look really kind of have a teal kind of look, you know. So there's many things you can do. It's not what I want to do, but it might be what someone else does. Again, I've got more latitude to do that and mess around with it. In Lightroom's fantastic because I can leave that image now and come back to it in 6 weeks time and change it if I didn't like it or do something different. So my advice again, with images like this, I mean, this isn't a very detailed image. If we had a more dynamic range of an image, I'll be able to show you a lot more of the limitations, but this is the reason why I shoot in RAW, and the reason why I think you should do too. So let's get back to it.
So there you have it, guys, a quick and simple demonstration on the limitations of a JPEG and why I shoot in RAW. And my advice to you is to do the same. Put your camera into RAW. If you're a little bit dubious at first and your camera has the ability, put it into RAW and JPEG. Shoot large files if you can, if you have the space and you have the capacity on your computer, because that way you can certainly mess around, but it's easier to shoot larger and reduce the size of your files than it is to increase the size of your files. And with landscapes, you want big files, you want to make them look good, nice and sharp. And yeah, hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it has, please smash that thumbs up button down there. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell, which will give you notifications every time I upload a video. And that all helps me. Hopefully this has been a help to you, and I'll see you in another video.